This video explains how to add address via form URL encoded API request. Before beginning with this, let's quickly navigate to Avo Link. As part of a prerequisite, make sure to authorize the API by providing the access token. Once after authorizing the API, as part of our process flow, expand the post API addresses endpoint here. In order to add an address, we need to fill out all the required details. Now let's copy the body. Once after copying the body, make sure to copy the endpoint of the post URL and then here copy the API URL. Once after copying all the required items, navigate back to Avo Assure. Here create a folder and name the folder as address creation. Once after creating the address, create the repository for app type web services. Name the repository as add address. Now select the method as post and paste the API URL which you have copied. Along with that, we'll also paste the endpoint URL. Now moving on to the body, here we will use form URL encoded. This will specifically accept the text, and here we can see we can either add key and value individually, or we can also make use of bulk edit. When I click on this bulk edit, here we can see we have an option to add n number of key and also the values associated with this. This is mainly used when we have to manually provide the key as well as value. Now I'll paste the key which I have designed. Now here we can see for the address, these are the key and these are the values. I will modify the values accordingly. Now once after providing all the required values, I'll click on authorization. Here I'll select the type as bearer token and I'll provide the access token. Once after clicking on the save button, the web services template saved successfully, and in the body we can see what are the key and values which I have provided. It has been reflected successfully by proper structure. So this is how we can make use of bulk edit in order to provide a number of key and values. Now let's create one more repository for the application type web services and I'll name it as get address. Once after adding the address, we'll also validate the address. I'll select the method as get, and here I'll also copy the endpoint along with the API URL. I'll provide the endpoint URL and then I'll provide the authorization key which is the access key. Now it has been saved. In add address, we can see once I provide the key and values by selecting the form URL encoded, the header will reflect by the proper content type which is application or form URL encoded. This will automatically reflect when I select any type like form URL encoded or form data. Now let's quickly navigate to test case. Here I'll create a folder. I'll name the folder as address creation. Once after this, I'll create a test case. Once after that, I'll add test step group. I'll name it as add address. I'll select the application type as web service. Now I will add the repository by dragging and dropping it. Now we can see what are the actions I have performed in element repository has been reflected in test case, and all the key values which I have provided along with the key type is present within the elements Now I'll quickly create one more test step group in order to validate the address. I will add the repository. I'll add a step here to validate the address. I will store the response in the variable body and then I'll display the variable. Now I'll quickly save the test case designed and I'll navigate to execution. Here I'll create a folder for address creation and execution list as address validation. Now I'll add the test case. Here I'll select the client, and for web services we'll not select any browsers. Click on the save. Now I'll navigate to the folder and click on execute. Now the execution started successfully and the reports has been generated successfully. Let's navigate to reports. Here in the test case details, I'll click on view reports. The test case has been executed.